everybody, lovely to see you. Isn't the weather that we're having over half term absolutely incredible? This sunshine is just lovely. I don't think I'll be needing one of these for a long time, because normally in Wales we need to carry one of these around with us. I know a really funny story about a man and an umbrella. Shall I tell it to you? Okay, I will. Suresh lived in a tropical country a long, long way away. This country tended to keep themselves to themselves. They didn't really have much contact with people outside their little country. One thing about this country though, they had an awful lot of rain. Even more rain than what we have in Wales. Can you imagine that? Every afternoon for about 2 to 3 hours, the heavens would open and there would be downpours of rain. No one had ever heard of an umbrella. But Suresh had a friend in Wales called Dewi. One day he decided to FaceTime him. Dewi, said Suresh, is there anything that we can do to solve the problem of all the rain that we have here in my country? Why not use an umbrella? Said Dewi. An umbrella? He said. What's that? Well, I'll send you one through the post. As long as you've got an umbrella, you'll never get wet. A week later, Dewi decided to FaceTime Suresh to find out how he was getting on. Hey Suresh, how are you getting on with the umbrella? It doesn't work, said Suresh. It arrived, I opened it up, I put it on the table, and when it was pouring with rain, I went outside, I got absolutely soaked. Well, that's no good, said Dewi. You can't leave it on the table. You've got to take the umbrella outside with you. Oh, said Suresh. I didn't realise that. A week later, Dewi FaceTimed Suresh again. Suresh looked like he was standing in a shower. He was soaking wet. What happened? Said Dewi. Did you not take the brolly with you? Yes, I did take the umbrella with me, said Suresh. Well, why did you get soaking wet? Show me how you used it. Well, I went outside with the umbrella and I walked around like this with the umbrella and I got soaking wet. Oh, you're using it all wrong, Suresh, said Dewi. You're supposed to put it above your head. Oh, said Suresh. I'll remember to do that next time. A week later, he phoned again. And Suresh looked again like he was standing in the shower, soaking wet. How did you use it this time? Said Dewi. Well, I did what you said. I put it above my head, like this, and I walked around with the umbrella above my head, but I still got soaked. Oh, you're doing it all wrong. You're supposed to open up the umbrella, put it above your head, make sure your head is almost in the umbrella and keep it really close. Then you'll be fine. A week later, Dewi phoned Suresh again, and this time he wasn't wet at all. It worked, said Suresh. It worked. I opened up the umbrella like you told me to. Just like this. I opened it up. I made sure I opened it up really properly. And then I pushed on it like this to open it up. I put it right above my head like that at first. And then I realised that wasn't going to do me any good. So I brought it right down over my head. And I stayed close. And I didn't get wet. Not one bit. This umbrella works really well. Thank you, Dewi. So that was a silly story, really, wasn't it, about a man with an umbrella? But it teaches us a really important lesson. And the lesson is this, that God has given us things to enjoy and to use properly. And if we use them properly, they'll do us a lot of good. But if we don't use them properly, they won't do us much good at all. The best example of this is the Bible, God's Word. He has given us this to use properly. And if we use it properly, we get a lot of good from it, a lot of good. Unfortunately, some people, a bit like the man with the umbrella, just leave it on the table, or they leave it on a shelf in their house, in their bedroom. It won't do you much good then, will it? Or they pick it up and they walk outside with it on a Sunday, and they take it to church with them on a Sunday, and then they bring it back, and then they put it back on the shelf. It won't do you much good. You need to open it up. You need to open it up and you need to start to read it. And as you read it, a bit like the brolly again, you've got to get your head inside it. You've got to start to think about what you're reading and ask yourself, what is God trying to teach me through his word? So what about you? Are you able to spend a little bit of time in God's word because you really want to? Or I wonder if you've fallen into another trap. The trap that goes a bit like this. I've got to read my Bible because it's the right thing to do. In the same way that Mum tells me that I've got to make my bed every day, I've got to read my Bible every day because it's the right thing to do. It's almost like reading the Bible's become a bit like a chore or a duty that I have to do. And it makes me feel better once I've read it. Well, that's not the way that God intended for us to use the Bible either. Let me try to explain. When Auntie Helen and I were engaged, we just got engaged. And I was in the Bible college in Bridgend and she was in Portsmouth, right down in the south of England. I was sent to the northeast of England for 4 weeks to do a placement with the church there in Barton-on-Humber. Auntie Helen and I couldn't be any further apart. In those days, there were no mobile phones, there was no internet. So the only way that we could really communicate with one another was either to phone on a public telephone or to write letters to one another. I didn't have a lot of money at the time, being a poor Bible college student, so I could phone Auntie Helen maybe a couple of times a week. But the best way for us to communicate was by writing letters. Auntie Helen promised she'd write to me every single day. And you know what? She did. Every day she'd write a letter to me. I'd wake up every morning and I couldn't wait to get my letter. I'd run down the stairs, and if the postman hadn't already been, I'd wait there for him. And literally, as he was putting the letter through the post box, I'd be pulling it out the other side. I was that desperate to hear from Auntie Helen. Then I'd take my letter and I'd whiz back up to my bedroom, I'd jump on my bed, I'd open the letter and I'd read it really slowly, taking in everything that Auntie Helen had said. And then when I'd finished reading it, do you know what I'd do? That's right, I'd read it again and again, maybe 3 or 4 times. Oh, I love hearing from Auntie Helen. And then during the day, I'd think about what Auntie Helen had said, what she'd shared with me, what her news was, what things she'd been doing the day before. And then before I'd go to bed, I'd open up the envelope again and I'd read the letter again. When she says, I love you, and she puts an exclamation mark, does that mean that she loves me more today than she did yesterday? You see, I didn't read the letters because I had to. I read the letters because I wanted to, because I loved Auntie Helen and I wanted to hear from her. And the funny thing was that the more I read her letters, the more I loved her, because she was sharing things with me. She was sharing her deep thoughts and her feelings and her emotions, and she was sharing secrets with me that maybe she hadn't shared with anyone else. And as a result of reading her letters, our relationship grew. And it's exactly the same with God's word. God's word is a little bit like a letter of love from God. In his word, he shares things with us. He reveals himself to us. He shows us what he is like. He tells us how we were made and where we came from. He tells us how we messed up and how we're broken. He shares with us his love and how that he loved us so much that he came into this world and that he sent Jesus to be our rescuer, to be the one who would put us back together again and put us back in that relationship with God. He shares with us something about the future and that he longs that one day that we will be with him and that we will spend eternity with him. So using the Bible properly is not about, oh, I've got to read it. It's because I want to read it, because I want to find out more about this wonderful person, Jesus Christ. And I want to know more about what he is doing. in my life. Hey, it's been lovely talking to you. May God richly bless you. Take care. Bye for now.